Welcome to the report from Tiger Mountain, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about the freezing cold weather all over Australia. We're down here in Victoria, in Vicdanistan. It's freezing, and we're going to talk about how all this really cold weather is a surefire sign of global warming. Stick around, Liz. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the new Speak Bible is here somewhere on my shelves, and I've just received that all this freezing weather that we're now dealing with here in Australia is a clear sign of global warming. Yes, that's correct. It makes absolutely no sense. It's very much like war is peace, ignorance is strength, and things of that nature. It's just a gigantic nonsense. Basically, about 20 years ago, I think it was The Age or The Australian or whatever, said that there wouldn't be any snow in the snowfields. You know what I mean? So like in 20 years ago, you should make sure you get up the snow, or else you're not going to see it again. But what we're seeing right now in the snowfields of Victoria and New South Wales are some of the biggest falls in their history ever recorded, ladies and gentlemen, in 100 years. That's what you're seeing this year. So this is obviously a clear sign of global warming. Perhaps it isn't. I mean, have we ever considered that? Perhaps it's not. But it's interesting to actually read their propaganda. They blame something called the polar vortex, which I have no idea exactly what that is. But I do know one thing. I do know that all the scientists who've got everything wrong on COVID the last 2 years know what the weather's going to be like in 50 years, ladies and gentlemen. So that's a clear fact, obviously. So you can fact check that. I think it's just an absolute nonsense that and this is the great thing that always kind of stumps me, and it kind of almost makes my jaw drop to the floor in relation to the climate change argument, is that everyone, and we just experienced a recent election here in Australia where people voted. The Greens got a couple of extra senators and they got their vote increased, and people voted for Labor. It was called the climate change election. Do Australians really think that the Australian government can control temperature, even if the worst hysterical thoughts on global warming are true? That the planet is doomed, and we're within 20 or 30 years we're all doomed, or 10 years or whatever it is. Greta Thunberg puts it like 3 or 4 years away, doesn't she, or something ridiculous? So do they really think that us basically freezing in winter, turning off the heater, which I got on today here in the lounge room, do they really think that's going to save us? No, it isn't. It's a nonsense, and I just can't believe that people actually think that. They think, well, I better vote green, because whatever the Australian government does is going to affect global temperature. I mean, I don't know what percentage of CO2 Australia contributes to the world global footprint, but I've read somewhere it's something like 1 or 2% Australia contributes. So whatever we do is meaningless. We could double our emissions, or we could cancel every single one and just, sit around, go back to the Aboriginal lifestyle of, just, wandering around with sticks. Maybe they lit a few fires. That wouldn't have been good for their carbon footprint. But just things like that, I just think it's an absolute nonsense what's happened. Obviously the debate about climate change is complex, and but look, I do believe humanity is doing damage to the planet, obviously, but I think the CO2 is like it's a typical globalist thing where they take the wrong information or the wrong situation, then they provide their totalitarian kind of fix, and then at the end of it they'll wave their magic wand and say that climate change has been fixed due to the fact that they've run a totalitarian government over us for the last 30 or 40 years, which is net zero by 2050, which is again another nonsense. I mean, you've got this gas crisis at the moment, it's all over Victoria and all over different states. Even Labor kind of panicked about it and saying we've got to use more gas and keep more of the reserves, because obviously we export gas, keep more of the reserves for Australians. This is exactly what net zero is. It's all about it's like energy profiteering for the elites. And it's just a scam. And also people, these left-wingers and these greenies who ride around on their bikes and everything and think that they're saving the planet, the level of stupidity, to think that tiny whatever they're doing makes any difference at all to anything it requires a level of stupidity that I find hard to deal with, ladies and gentlemen. So that's all I wanted to say here on the report from Tiger Mountain. We're seeing inflation go through the roof. We're seeing lettuce prices are going up. It's like, you're going to need to see your bank manager, ring your bank manager, and talk to them if you want to get a head of lettuce. So it's just ridiculous. But this is just the beginning of the net zero agenda, ladies and gentlemen, and it's all rubbish. Obviously there are things we can do to clean up the environment. I'm into things like getting plastic out of the oceans and removing plastics from our rivers, but Australia is a pretty green country, and there's a great article recently in The Spectator that said basically Australia already is net zero, and I agree with that. You know, compared with the amount of people who live here and the size of the nation, Australia already is net zero, and we should just declare ourselves we are net zero. And we should also build some more coal-fired power stations and some more gas plants so we can remain warm during the freezing months of winter during this time of terrible global warming, ladies and gentlemen. I had no idea global warming was going to be so cold. That's the report from Tiger Mountain this week.